Oh, hi guys! Welcome everyone. My name is Vera and today I'm going to show you how to paint our gnome right here. So before we start, let's go through all our supplies and everything else that we're going to need for today. First thing you're going to need is your paper. I'm going to be using this 9 by 12 inch watercolor paper, but you're welcome to use anything that you would like. It doesn't have to be this particular paper. Next thing we're going to, actually, I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to put the rest away. And you're going to need a pencil because we're going to start with a sketch. If you guys came with pre-sketched gnome, that's perfect. You don't have to sketch it then. If you haven't pre-sketched, that's okay. I'm going to show you how to sketch it from scratch. So you can choose whether you want to use outline that we provide for pre-sketching or whether you want to pre-sketch, or whether you want to sketch from scratch along with me. And if you're looking where to find this outline, it is in the description of this video. There's a link, so feel free to click on that and we'll bring you to that downloadable outline. So make sure you have a pencil. You're going to need it. And of course an eraser because we're going to start with a sketch. Once our sketch is done, we're going to move on to painting. And for the painting part, you are going to need a couple things. First thing you're going to need is a watercolor paint of some kind. I'm using my Koi watercolor palette, but you are absolutely welcome to use any palette that you have, or you're welcome to use a tube watercolor paint as well, whatever you prefer. Grab a mixing tray. And by the way, guys, if you have a way simpler watercolor palette with just a couple different colors, that's okay. I'm going to show you how to mix all the colors that we'll be using from just simple primary colors. So if you don't have an elaborate palette, that's not a problem. You can still do this painting. So I'm going to put this aside for now and grab a mixing tray of some kind. Then after this, we're going to need, oh, by the way, I'm going to be showing you my colors on this little paper right here, just so you can see them better. And we're going to need water. And we're going to need a couple brushes. It's always good to have a variety. There are no particular brushes that you have to use, except I would say it's always very important to have a nice detailed pointy brush. So here is mine. This should be either number 1 or number 0 or number 2, something really small. We always recommend 0. But most important part about it, it should have a really nice pointy tip. So it should be a soft bristle brush with a really nice pointy tip. That's what we're looking for here. And other than that, you're gonna need a couple brushes, maybe a medium and a large, or a medium small and a medium. So just a couple different brushes, because there will be other areas that require some work done. And it's always good to have a variety of sizes. So for example, I'm gonna grab a medium small. In my case, all the brushes that I'm gonna be using are soft bristle pointy brushes, which is perfect for watercolor. It's easiest way to do it, and it is gonna give you best results. However, for those two brushes, it's not crucially important that they are a pointy tipped soft bristle brushes. It's just something I recommend. But if you have maybe, let's say, only square brushes or rounded brushes, that's okay. You're welcome to use those as well. Again, it doesn't have to be a soft bristle pointy brush, even though we do recommend that. Okay, so 3 brushes is always ideal. Small for details, then medium, and then large for larger areas, but just 2 is also okay. Small and medium, or small and large is totally fine. And we're gonna need a piece of paper towel. Where's my paper towel? You're also welcome to use a reusable fabric cloth if you prefer that. It doesn't have to be a paper towel, but I'm going to be using a paper towel. And that's pretty much it, guys, as far as our supplies. Okay, guys, so let's start drawing, I guess. So I'm going to put this aside and you can refer to the image on your screen right here. And I'm going to put this aside as well because we're not going to need it just yet. And my brushes and everything else. So all we're going to need right now is our piece of paper and a pencil and maybe an eraser. And that's it. And guys, just so just so you know, and keep in mind, this is a video recording, so it's not a live event. So if you need to pause it and give yourself more time for every step, please do that. This is how we design our videos, um, with that in mind, so you can pause it at any point, give yourself enough time for every step, and then whenever you're ready, you can resume it and you can continue painting along with me. And also, this video is going to remain here on our YouTube pretty much forever. So if you can't do the entire thing today, you can always come back and do it another day. That's totally fine. So please go at your own pace, enjoy the process, don't rush through this. It will be here for you whenever you're ready for it. Right, so what we're going to do right now is we're going to start drawing. And the first thing that I'm going to draw is going to be my nose. So it's going to be horizontally right in the middle. Vertically, it's a little bit higher than the middle in my case. I mean, if you position it in the middle, that would be okay too. But in my case, it's a little bit higher. So I'm going to identify where the middle of my paper is first. So I would say this is my middle. Just approximately, right? I'm not using any, measuring tool like a ruler or something. And just approximately. And now that I know where my middle is, just a bit higher than that, I'm going to put a little oval. And you don't have to get it right the first time. So for example, if it turns out a little too big or a little too small right now, it's perfectly fine. We just have to start somewhere. So this is our starting point. All right, great. And guys, I'm going to be sketching quite dark because I want you to be able to see it really well. But generally, I would suggest sketching quite light. Or if you're just a heavy-handed person generally and sketching light is not your thing, you can always sketch dark and then take an eraser and lighten it up before we move on to our watercolor. All right, so now that we have our nose, so we're going to decide how wide our hat is going to be, and we're going to sketch our hat. And you can also decide how far you want to go with your hat. So I would say maybe I'm going to keep about an inch from the top. So maybe somewhere here I'm going to end my hat. Approximately, again, it's not a precise math. And as far as width, so I'm going to start above my nose, not right here, not at the very top, just like above the middle, so somewhere right here. And I'm going to add 2 lines to the sides. And they shouldn't be straight, they should be slightly curved. All right, I think this is a good starting point, and I'll adjust it later if I find that this may be a too small or too big. We can always adjust that. And now I'm gonna add another curve right here and another line right here. So now I have this nice fluffy area. All right, great. Now from here, I'm gonna add the hat, but not right from the edge. I'm gonna go a little bit closer here. So maybe from right here. And you can just give your hat any shape that you want it to have. In my case, I'm gonna go out, in, out, maybe something like that. Let's see, let's perfect the shape. Oh yeah, I like that curve. That's nice. I'll keep it. All right, then my other side. and a fluffy ball on the tip of our hat. All right, so that's my hat. I'm happy with the shape. Again, you're welcome to do any shape that you want. It doesn't have to be the exact same like mine at all. You can do a curve to the bottom. You can do just a straight hat. Any shape of hat will work. Whatever works for you guys. All right, so now I'm gonna move to my beard. And let's see what size our beard is. So I'm gonna measure with my pencil here. And our beard is a bit smaller than our hat. So from the bottom of our nose to my beard and from the top of my nose to my head, it's much smaller. But you could, again, you're drawing, you're painting, make it unique to you. So if you want to have a big beard, go for it. In my case, I'm going to stick with the original that I made, and I'm going to try to replicate it pretty close. So I'm not really going to go too far from what I did there. So I'm going to add my beard. I'm going to do the outer shape first, so this bigger one, and it's going to start somewhere right here. So again, not right at the edge, a little bit in, so not here but right here, and then it's going to go out, and then it's going to go in, and it's going to have a little nice tip on the end. So something like that. And then I'm going to lightly zigzag it up, so it's a little more zigzaggy and not super straight. All right, and now I'm going to add a smaller part right here. So this one is going to start, I would say, somewhere approximately here. So not right at the nose, but close to it. And it's going to have very similar shapes. So you're going to go out first, and then in, and you're going to bring it all the way into the same little section there. And I'm going to lightly zigzag it up on the bottom. Awesome! I got our beard as well. And those little lines, you don't really have to sketch them. I'm going to move on to the rest of my body now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my arms. So the arm is going to go right in between here. So where our hat connects to our beard. And it's just going to be a little curved line going down. And we're going to do that on both sides. And then we're going to add the same fluffy little section. And a mitt. And then we're going to be left with legs. So I usually add my legs first, maybe even a little lower. Yeah, let's go a little lower than that. Maybe I'll make this a little bigger. So do you see? It's like, you know, the infinity sign, similar to that, but kind of squished. And then we're gonna add the rest of the coat. And we'll do a little bit smaller legs. So you start somewhere and then you adjust it as you go. And you change things. Awesome. He looks very, very cute. All right, let's add a little decoration right here. So what I'm going to start with is 3 berries. You can do them either the same size or you can do slightly different sizes. It's entirely up to you. So I'm going to position 3 berries and then 2 leaves. So for leaves, I'm going to start with the middle part. So I'm going to position bigger leaf and a smaller leaf. So I'm going to add 2 lines for the middle parts of my leaves. And then from the tip of my leaf, I'm going to go and add those curved lines. So let me go closer here. And of course, if there's a line underneath, make sure to erase that line. All right, I'm pretty happy with this. Okay, another thing I want to do before I move too far is I'm going to fluff up this head part. So now that I know what size it is and where it is positioned, I'm going to erase it a bit and I'm going to fluff it up. So I'm going to go over it and make it a bit fluffier. It just doesn't look so straight. All right, I like this more. Yeah. Okay. Let's go back here. Oops. Sorry guys, I'm kind of blocking my face. It's okay. I'll figure it out, right? All right. All right, I unblocked my face. Great. So now we're going to move on to the background here. And as you can see, so on a background, we have 3 leaves on each side. We have a couple of berries, 1 long branch and a couple small branches and a couple even smaller branches right here. So what I'm going to start with is I'm going to start with large sections. So the large leaves. And again, I'm going to start with middle line. So I'm going to position middle line, middle line, middle line, and then the same thing on the other side. So let's start with this one, I would say. So I'm going to start with a long one and I'm going to start at around this section where there is, you know, a side of the coat. And I'm going to position 1 leaf, so just 1 middle line, then a little bit higher second middle line, and a little lower third middle line. Great, now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. 1 middle line. They don't have to be, by the way, exactly the same. If they're different, that's okay. That's not a problem. They just shouldn't be completely different, unless that's the look you're going for. In my painting, there's a symmetry, but again, it's your painting. It doesn't have to have symmetry. It's totally fine if you're not a fan of symmetry. And again, just the same way I did this, I'm going to do this from the end. I'm going to start adding a little line going all the way to the bottom. So that's 1 leaf. So this one is on top, everything else is going to be behind it. So this one is going to be behind that one, so it shouldn't be overlapping it. Once you get to the edge of this one, just stop there. Great, and I'm going to erase this line now because I wouldn't be seeing it because it's underneath, right? All right, so that's my 3 leaves, and now I'm going to add a couple berries here. I'm going to do less berries this time. I think I went a little crazy here the first time. Yeah, okay, I'm happy with this amount of berries. Now let's do the same thing on the other side. You guys can have as many berries as you want. You can have just 1 or 2 or 3, or you can have lots like I did on my regional painting. So let's do a similar thing on the other side now. I think it should be a little bit wider. This looks a touch too skinny. An interesting thing, you will actually always find one side easier to do than the other, depending on whether you're right-handed or left-handed. All right, and now let's add a couple berries again. They don't have to, berries don't have to be a mirrored reflection of what's going on the other side. You can have a different amount of berries or different positioning. That is totally fine. So don't feel pressured to, repeat exactly the same thing that you did there. So we have our large leaves, we have our berries. Now we're going to position those beautiful branches on top. So again, we're going to start with just a line. You can make it any size and shape that you want. I'm going to add a slightly smaller one on the other side. Now I'm going to add a beautiful leaves to them. So they're going to look like very long teardrops with the end being nice and rounded, and then it gets more narrow as it merges into this branch. And you see some of them were kind of pointing, some of them are pointing towards the inside, they're like curved towards the inside, some of them are curved towards the outside. So it's not just all of them has to be curved one way, they can be curved towards different directions. All right, so that's one branch. And now I'm gonna do my second branch. All right, I'm happy with this. Maybe one more little one. Awesome. All right, so now I'm gonna position my large branches. You can have as many as you want. On this painting, I did 3 here, 2 here. I think I'm gonna do the opposite this time. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Let's do 3 and 2 this time. And I'm just gonna lightly flick a couple lines where my pine needles are going to be, but they don't have to be a precise sketch. You don't even have to sketch them at all. It's just, this is for your own peace of mind and satisfaction. And we're gonna add a few more branches right here and some berries on them. You can start with berries or you can start with branches. I'm gonna start with the branches. I'll do 2 branches on each side. And then a couple of berries. Again, you can have any amount of berries that you want. More berries, less berries. Entirely up to you how many berries you're going to have there. And that's about it for our sketch. So what we're going to do now is you're going to take a good look at it and see, are you happy with it? Is there anything that you would like to adjust? Does it look right? So for me personally, I think my nose is a little too small, so I'm going to go bigger now. Now that we have positioned everything, you actually have a better idea what everything looks like and what's proportional, what's not, what needs to be adjusted, and so on. So I'm just gonna go back over my nose and I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger because I feel like it should be a little bigger. And I'm gonna make this beautiful fluffy bottom of my hat a little bit bigger as well. I feel like it's a little too small. All right, I feel happier this way right now, that it's a little bigger. Great. Everything else I'm quite happy with, so I don't think I want to be adjusting anything else here. So guys, If you need to, feel free to pause this video and just, finalize your sketch before we go any further. And if you came with a pre-sketched outline, or you are as ready as it gets, you can continue, and we're gonna move right on to our painting here. So I'm gonna start with my gnome, and I'm gonna start with the light areas on my beard, all those fluffy areas, and then I'm gonna move on to my jacket, and then I'm gonna move on to my head, and then I'm gonna move on to decoration and a background. So what you're gonna do, you can put aside your pencil, your eraser. We're not going to need them. I'm gonna bring this little guy here and my watercolor palette. By the way, I've never done the video like this where you can see my face, but I thought it would be fun, right? Because we always debate how we should do our videos, whether we should have, the view of us, especially with acrylic, because you can do it both ways, right? You can do it the way that everyone sees you and the painting, or you can do just the view from the top. And we like both, so I thought this would be best of both worlds. But again, I apologize if it's not working very well. I've never done this, so this is a nice trial. And you guys can let us know in comments if you find that it's actually something you like, or where you're like, nah, hide your face. Let's just see the video. Let us just see the drawing, which is fine. I'm not going to be offended. I am not very easily offended. Okay. Hmm. Let me quickly pause this. I would like to adjust my camera quickly before we move any further. All right, I adjusted this front camera. I'm quite happy with this, so now we can move forward. So what are we gonna use is our couple of brushes. I think I'm gonna start with my medium small brush. So this one, not the smallest one, but not the biggest one either. So either medium, small, or small. And you're gonna dip it in the water. And first color that we're going to use there is going to be a very light gray. So we're going to grab our watercolor tray, and we're going to grab very watered down black. We're going to put it right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a bit of that right here on our outline. So let me show you first, guys. Don't do this just yet. Let me show you what we're going to do. And then you can go ahead and do that. So do you see I did it on the outline, and now I'm going to wash off my brush. I'm going to quickly dab it off on a paper towel, and I'm going to blend it in. So do you see now it's darker towards the outside and it's lighter towards the inside. And make sure you use very, very little bit of gray for this, because it needs to stay pretty light. And then I'm going to do the same exact thing on the other side. I'm going to wash off my brush, dab it off on a paper towel. And let's continue doing that. I'm going to go around the nose a little bit too. And one more little area. So I'm going to do this. So again, wash it off, dab it on a paper towel, and then quickly merge it with just water towards the middle. Then we're going to repeat for the other side as well. All right, and keep it nice and light, because you don't want to go too dark here. If you go too dark, you're not going to be able to make it lighter or later. So he's going to have, instead of white beard, he's going to have a darker beard. Alright, so now I want to move on to this section. And what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to switch my brush to a very small brush because that's a very small section. And I'm going to grab just a touch of the same light gray there. And I'm going to start bringing it like this from the edges here, in that fluffy brushstroke motion. But just the most important thing is that you keep it very, very light. It should be hardly visible. So I'm going to bring it all around the edge. In certain areas I'm going to add more of it, in certain areas less of it. You see, it gives it that fluffy texture, but it also shapes it. It gives it that shape that it needs to have. And I'm going to do the same thing on my sides as well. All right, I like it. That looks really nice. Okay. If this is dry, we can move on to second layer here. And now I'm going to be using the small brush, and I'm going to grab just a little bit more of my black this time. So again, I'm going to water it down so it's nice and light. It's just going to be slightly darker than my first one. And I'm going to start adding those lines. So I'm going to start from the top. I'm just going to flick them. Using my small brush, I'm going to flick them from the top down and keep them as light as you can get for now, because this is just the first layer. We're going to add some darker ones later. And I'm actually going to go closer here as well, because this is all super detailed work. So you guys are going to see a bit of wires instead of my face for a little bit, which I'm sure you don't mind. All right. Nice and light. And then once we have that, we're going to start adding from the edge. So you're going to do flicks from the edge up, following the shape of your beard. And you can kind of add a bit more to this outline too. So a couple flicks to the outline to keep it a bit darker. You see, it creates a beautiful light hairiness. This hairy texture. The goal is, while doing all of this, is to keep it light, because it's so easy to go way too dark on this step. And I can't say that it's a ruin if you went way too dark. It certainly is not. It's just your gnome is not going to have a Santa white beard. He's going to be a dark bearded gnome, which I'm sure exists in real world, because the gnomes are real. So I'm sure there's one like that somewhere. Clearly. Okay. I'm happy with this. And with the same color, I'm going to go second layer on here. But this time I'm going to add a little less again. So do you see how far I went with my first layer? I'm going to go way less with my second one. There's no need for me to add as much of it. See, just a little bit to shape it a touch. And the same on the sides, just a tiny touch. You can even skip it, you don't have to have it. And then I'm gonna go third layer on my beard. That's where I'm gonna get a little bit darker, but again, I'm gonna add way less of it. So here it is. So just a little bit more and just a little bit darker, but I'm gonna be adding way less. So again, I'm gonna repeat the same exact, well, actually I may go even darker than that. I'm gonna repeat the same exact steps. And use the smallest brush that you have. You want those brush strokes to be super, super fine. So all around the nose, adding very little ones there. All right, doesn't this look awesome? So our beard is pretty much done. The same with our hat here. And now I'm gonna move on to our jacket. So let's work on our jacket. You can grab any blue that you have, whichever blue makes you happy. You're welcome to use that one. And you're gonna use, I would say, medium small brush again. So let me choose a perfect blue for me personally. I would like to use more of a muted blue. So if you don't have more of a muted blue, you can make one. You can just grab whichever blue you have and add a tiny smidge of black and then water it down. And that will give you nice, almost dusty and grayish blue. So do you see this one is not very like a vibrant blue. It's light, it's on a lighter side, but it has that grayer undertone to it. So that's what I'm gonna make. So I'm gonna grab my blue, I'm gonna grab my, I would say regular or light blue for starters. And then I'm gonna add a smidge of black. So the tiny, tiny smidge of black. Okay, I think this would be a good color, but let's try it, right? We don't know until we try it. So I'm gonna grab a bit more water and I'm gonna add my first layer. Oh, I'm happy with this. This is nice. And I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna color in my jacket first layer. So let's say go fairly light. Keep it generally on the lighter side. And just one solid layer, nothing too crazy. And of course, avoid your berries, your shoes. I'm gonna grab some water because it looks a little streaky. So I'm gonna grab some water, and with water I'm just gonna smudge a few areas so they look a little more blended, a little less streaky. All right, I'm happy with this. And now after this, I'm gonna let it dry because I can't really do anything else on it until it dries. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab a little tiny little smidge of this color, really nice and watery. So do you see I'm just grabbing a little corner here, super light and watered down. And with a smidge of that, I'm gonna bring it on a beard. So from the top, very lightly. Do you see how light it is? That's what you want. You want it to be super light, and a bit on the bottom here. So right here, right here, right here, and right there. That's where I'm gonna add it. I'm not gonna be adding this particular color to my hat, but you can add just a little bit of it. Again, super light. Do you see the consistency of paint that I'm adding? It's like a tinted water pretty much. There is next to no pigment in here. Really light. I'm gonna add a little bit of it right here too. You can skip it, you don't have to do it. This is all optional. You can just keep them white with a little bit of gray. But I like adding a touch of color there. So now we have to wait for our jacket to dry. We can't really do anything on it until it dries properly. But what we could do is we could go first layer on our mitts, on our hat, and on our shoes, and actually on our berries. We can go on everything red first layer. So I would say choose the shade of red that makes you happy for this. There are lots of shades of red to choose from, so whichever one is your favorite, go with that one. All right, so here are my shades of red. I have lots. I think I'm gonna go for my base layer with something like this. So just a really nice and bright and vibrant red. And as I go further into the darker areas on the next layer, I'm gonna go maybe with something like that. If you don't have a variety of reds, that's not a problem. You can always just grab one red that you have, use it for the first layer, and for the second layer, you can just add a smidge of red, a smidge of black to it, a very small smidge of black, and that should bring you right to the right color. So I'm gonna put this red on my palette. And by the way, guys, when you work with watercolor, never ever go from your dry watercolor palette right onto your painting. You always want to go onto your mixing tray first, and only after that you want to go on to your painting. All right, let's grab my paint. I'll put it somewhere right here. Why not, right? Let's choose a spot for it. This looks like a very good spot. So I grabbed it. It's quite saturated right now, but I'm gonna go, yes, you still want to go saturated, but you don't want to go super saturated. So not at 100%, maybe at 50%, maybe at 70%, but you don't want to go at 100%. So I'm going to add a bit of water to it. And with this beautiful color, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a first layer onto my hat. So just color it in. There is no particular strategy or technique to it. Just go ahead and color the whole hat. The only thing, keep in mind again, don't go at 100%, go maybe at 50 to 70% saturation, because we still have more layers to go. But don't go below 50 either, because it's not gonna look red. So you want it to go, you wanna go at the color that actually looks nice and red, but also at the color that if you add a second layer of the same color, you will see the difference. So you're not using up the whole potential of your color. So yeah, I would say 70% is like a good spot to aim for. All right, so here is my head. Now I'm gonna wash off this brush and I'll put it aside. And I'm gonna grab small brush, and for the rest of this, I'm gonna use my small brush. So let's grab a bit more of that red. And I'm gonna go on my mitts and my shoes here. So I'm gonna go on my mitts first. Just color them in. And I'm gonna go on my shoes and I'm gonna color them in as well. Alrighty. And then I'm gonna move to berries. So it's gonna be slightly different with my berries. Let me refill my paint here because I don't have much left. So let me refill it and then I'm gonna explain why and how it's gonna be different with our berries. So here is my watered down red for the berries. So let's start with the tiny little berries right here. And the difference is I'm gonna leave a tiny smidge of white paper. So I'm gonna start by drawing like a little circle or square or some shape with white inside, and then I'm gonna color around it. So you're gonna keep that section white. Yes, you can cheat and always add a smidge of white acrylic in the end to create that glare. But if you actually want to learn watercolor and do it without cheating, then I would recommend reserving that white spot because that is proper way to do it. But of course, cheating is totally fine. You can use acrylic in the end. If this doesn't work out or if you do your best, but then you just cover it accidentally, not a problem. You can always add a smidge of acrylic in the end. But I also love the look of it because it looks different. There, you can notice the difference between when you reserve the white space or when you added acrylic. So I really like the look of reserved white space. So whenever I can do it, I will do it instead of using acrylic. All right, and I'm gonna do the same thing with the large berries. So on the really large berries, you can even add a couple maybe spots. It doesn't have to be just one. So do you see on that one, I added a couple spots. All right, and I have a couple more berries here. All right, that looks wonderful. Look at him. Okay, so now we're gonna need to let that dry as well. And as that's drying, we could probably go second layer. Oh, sorry guys, let's add a little bit of this onto beard and a hat. This is gonna be super watered down and super optional. So you can grab a touch of this. Again, add lots of water, water it down to consistency of like just tinted water. And then grab just a little bit of that and you can add it right here. You see, just like a little touch, very small. It's super light. And I'm gonna add it just a little bit on my beard right here. The goal with this is to go as light as you can. If you go a little too dark, he's gonna look like he just feasted on something living. So basically not a good look for a Santa. He's gonna get creepy. So let's just keep it as light as we can. Maybe I'll add a little bit right here too. You see, it's like a hint of color. It's not even a full color. Great, great, great. We could probably go now to, let's go on to our jacket second layer. I think it's ready, so we can move to that. Let's make our color again. This time, it's gonna be the same color. It's just gonna be more saturated and with more black. So I'm gonna start by adding more. Actually, I'm gonna use my medium brush to make my color because I find it's easier to use larger brushes to make the color versus the smallest one. It just takes forever to make the color with the smallest brush. Then I'm gonna add a bit of black to it again. So mixing my blue with my black. And with this now to actually paint, I'm gonna use my small brush. So I'm gonna grab my small brush here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna darken up this from the top. So do you see I'm adding a couple of brush strokes right here on the top and a bit closer to the beard. If you can create this just looking almost like a blending where it looks darker around here and lighter here without washing, that's great. You don't have to do a wash. If you can't and it looks very linear, you can actually grab this, add a couple lines, and then you can wash off your brush, dab it off on a paper towel, and with a nice clean brush, just wash it into that background. So, and now I'm going to move on to the other side. I'm going to do the same thing. So do you see, if you can just get it done right and looking good without doing the wash, awesome. If not, wash off your brush, dab it off on a paper towel, and just slightly wash it into the background here. I think I can actually go a little darker, so I'm going to make my paint a smidge more saturated because I feel like it's a little too light still. Oh yeah, now we're talking. This I like. All right, awesome. And now I'm gonna move on to the bottom part. Maybe I'll add a bit more actually here, closer to the edge to darken that up a touch too. It's not so washed off. Awesome, great. So now I'm gonna move to my bottom. Eee, too much black. Okay, good. And I'm gonna do it from the edge here. So here you're gonna need to wash it off. So you're gonna darken up this section from the edge around the mitt, like this, and a bit to the boot. As soon as you have it, wash off your brush, dab it off on a paper towel, and blend it before it dries. Because once it dries, you can't really do anything about it. And then if needed, you can repeat it and add a bit more. Right, so do you see it's like a nice gradient for dark to light here? So another thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna darken up this too. Just around the edge of the beard, I'm gonna add a bit of that darker color. And again, as soon as you have it, dab off your brush on the paper towel, oops, and wash it off. I think I washed off a little too much, so I'm gonna need to add a bit more of this color. Great, so do you see that transition? And now we're just gonna do the same thing on our right side. All right, then I'm gonna wash it off right away. So wash off my brush and wash it off right away, because even if you wait for like a couple extra seconds, it just dries. The watercolor, especially when you use just a little bit of it, it dries so fast. So you're gonna have to be quick here. All right, that looks really good. I am liking it. All right, all right, all right, all right. Maybe I'll add just a touch around here to separate my white from my blue, but not too much. You see, just a touch. Let's move it here. And let's do some on the other side too. Yay! I think that looks great. You could, if you wanted to, grab a little bit of this color and you can add a couple streaks from the top. This is super optional again. You don't have to. Just giving you guys options. And from the bottom. If you feel like you already have it dark enough there, then don't mess with it. Just leave it. There's no need to mess with it. Awesome, awesome, awesome. And our jacket is done. I'm not going to be adding anything else except maybe after we finish everything, if I want to add a bit of black for the contrast, maybe I'll add that. But other than that, I don't want to be adding anything. So what I would like to do now is I would like to go onto the second layer on my hat and my berries and everything red, because it should be ready. So again, I'm going to start with my medium small brush or medium brush, whatever you have, And what you're going to use is just, you're going to grab the red that you have, the red that you use, but in a very saturated way. So just go with 100% now. And using this, I'm going to go right closer to the side here. I'm going to add quite a bit of it there. So do you see right at the edge? And then I'm going to wash off my brush, dab it off on a paper towel. I'm just going to slightly smudge it towards the middle, so lightly. You don't have to bring it to a full blending. And then I'm going to repeat the same step on the other side. So I'm grabbing my saturated, super saturated paint again. And I'm going here onto the side. And I'm adding quite a bit of it. And then I'm washing off my brush, dabbing it off on a paper towel, and just smudging it to get rid of that line. So it's more like a wash off. And you see now we have a lighter in the middle and super saturated and slightly darker towards the edges. And we're gonna do the same thing with berries, legs, and hands, but we're gonna need to switch our brush. So I'm gonna put this one aside and I'm gonna grab my small one. I'm gonna grab that super saturated red paint. And it doesn't really matter what you start with. Let's start with mitts, I guess. So I'm gonna go right here, right here, right here. Add all that, then wash it off, dab it on a paper towel, and just smudge it. Maybe I dabbed it too much. Oh yeah. So do you see, it just creates like a slightly lighter middle and a more saturated edge. So again, add it, lightly dab off my brush on a paper towel, smudge it. Let's do the shoes too. So the shoes, I'm just gonna leave the top and I'm gonna add it onto the bottom part. See, just the bottom. Then I wash off my brush, lightly dab it off on a paper towel, and smudge it. But still, I see I have this lighter top. That's what we're looking for. Just repeat the same step for the other side too. Awesome. And now berries. Very similar, except I'm not going to be blending my berries. I'm just going to leave them linear. So I'm going to grab a bit of this paint and I'm just going to go onto my berries and I'm going to cover it, I would say maybe 70% of my berry, leaving a little, only a little bit of that lighter color visible. If you want to do the merging and blending with berries, you absolutely can. But because I'm trying to make my berries more reflective, I'm not going to be doing that. And generally, they're pretty small. So I'm going around and then I'm sort of filling it in until it's 70% full and I still see a little bit of that previous background color. Just to give it dimension and that rounded shape. I'm going to show you guys closer in a second what that looks like. So do you see, you can still see some of my previous color, so that lighter version, but it almost looks like a secondary glare now. Do you see in the middle, so you can see that lighter version, but the edge, it looks more saturated and darker. All right, that's awesome. And now we're gonna let it dry again because we're gonna add third layer, but it has to dry before we do that. We can't really go into our third layer just yet. And as that dries, we can start working on our background. So the background, the majority of it, and I'm talking about our beautiful leaves and colors here. Majority of it we're going to do with two colors. So it's going to be our lighter green and it's going to be a darker green. And we're going to do a gradient from lighter green to darker green. You can use any shade of lighter green and darker green. It doesn't have to be like a warm or cold green. There are two shades that I will be using, but you're welcome to use any light green and any dark green. And then later on, we're going to add a third shade, which is going to be with added black, so dark green with added black. So for right now, just grab two. Let's look at my palette right here. This is the greens that I have, and I think I'm gonna go with the lightest one that I have. So this one is the lightest one that I have, and I'm gonna go with this one, which is like an emerald green. So that's what I'm gonna use for my darker version. You could go even darker and add a tiny smidge of black to it. It has to be just a very, very tiny smidge though, so it doesn't look dim. It should just look darker, but not very dim. And when you add too much black, it almost looks too dim and grayish, and it loses the color. So let's just start by putting two greens on your palette. Now, for example, if you only have one green and you don't know what to do, here's what you're gonna do. So let's say you only have this green. This is pretty standard green, so you have it in any watercolor palette. To create this, you're gonna mix this with yellow, and you're gonna land right here. And to create this, you're gonna mix this with blue, any blue, and you're gonna land right here. So again, if you only have one green, you're gonna create your two greens by first one by mixing it with yellow, second one by mixing it with blue. And of course, mix it with a dark blue if you can. All right, so I'm gonna grab my medium brush for this, and I'm gonna start by putting my light green onto my palette. I'm actually gonna need to put both of my greens on my palette before I move forward, and you're gonna use them quite saturated, I would say. So make sure you put them on your palette very saturated and still using a lot of water. So that's my first green, and here is my second green. Let's see how it goes. If I find that it's a little too light, I'm gonna adjust it. All right, and what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna use my medium brush for this, but if you find that smaller brush works better for you because those are quite fine areas, you're welcome to switch to a smaller brush. So we're gonna do a gradient, and it's gonna be slightly different for every section. So for example, here it's just gonna be, you start with one color and then second color and you blend. Here it's going to be every single leaf. So this leaf is going to have just one color. Next leaf is going to have majority of one color and a little bit of second color. And then you're just going to change proportion with less and less of the top color per leaf and more bottom color per leaf. This is a little more complicated, but honestly nothing you can't handle. So let's start with, I like starting with the top only because I work this way, right? So I don't smudge my paint, but if it's easier for you to start here, that's okay. So I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna use my medium brush because I find it easier, and it still has, as you can see, a really nice pointy tip so I can get fine details. If you can't, you're welcome to switch to a small brush. So I'm gonna start with my quite saturated light green, and I'm gonna color the first three, actually the first 5 leaves, because they're pretty small. And then I'm gonna dab off my brush on the paper towel and grab a little bit, just a touch of my blue. I'm gonna add a bit of this to this and this leaves. You see, just a touch. And I'm gonna wash off my brush, dab it off on a paper towel again, and with a clean wet brush, I'm gonna merge them. Nice, right? Pretty good start. I'm quite happy with this. All right, so let's continue going here. So I'm gonna go back to my light green and I'm gonna do the next couple leaves. I usually do them a couple leaves at a time. All right, that's good. And again, I'm gonna dab off my brush and I'm gonna grab some of my darker green, and from the bottom I'm gonna add some of my darker green, and as I go further down I'm gonna continue adding a bit more and more and more of it. Do you see how on top I did just a touch, and now that I'm getting a little lower I'm continuously increasing the amount of green that I'm adding. All right, and if you need to, in my case I don't need to blend it, they're pretty blended as is because I added it on wet, so they just blended. If you need to blend it, do that. And then I'm gonna switch to my light color again, and I'm gonna finish up the rest of my leaves. So this two I'm gonna add light, the rest I'm not even gonna add light. I'm just gonna make them in the dark color. So right away I'm gonna add some dark color right here. I'm gonna wash off my brush, dab it off on a paper towel. I'm gonna blend them. So the majority of it is pretty dark with just a really nice light tip. And then the rest I'm just gonna go ahead and color them with this darker color, with that emerald. All right, so that's one. It looks awesome. Okay, so while it's still fresh in my mind and I just got some practice, I'm gonna do the other side. So let's refresh our colors. I'm gonna add more paint onto my palette because you always wanna have enough paint to complete the step. It can be a bit annoying to get more paint halfway through, so make sure you have enough. And I'm gonna do the exact same thing pretty much. And of course, use whichever brush is comfortable for you, because this one is even smaller, right? So if medium brush it's way too big for you, small brush is a good way to go. There's nothing wrong with using small brush. I prefer medium, but also I'm quite comfortable using it, and I have a pretty good medium brush. So again, I added a couple leaves, then I'm gonna take a bit of that green and I'm gonna add it. So a bit more to the bottom ones, a bit less to this ones, and nothing to the very top. I'm gonna dab it off on a paper towel, wash it off, dab it off on a paper towel. I'm gonna merge them a little bit because these two didn't self-merge, so you just have to look at them. They look like they merged enough by just adding the color. You don't have to merge them. If they didn't, it's always good to merge them. And I'm just gonna continue going down. So I'm gonna add the next two, just a little bit of this. And the last one, I'm gonna do straight dark color. All right, looks amazing. I'm loving it. I'm gonna add brown later in the middle as well for the branch itself, but not yet. While I'm at it, and if you're using small brush, great. If not, if you're comfortable using medium, that's okay. We're gonna do the same thing right here. So just a gradient of two colors. And let me add a bit more of those colors on my palette again. Let's just refresh it quickly. All right, maybe I'll even switch to a small brush. Such a small detail, right? So let's start with our light green. I'm gonna color in my, I would say 60% of it, so you don't cover half, you cover a bit more than half on both leaves with this. And then I'm washing off my brush, dabbing it on a paper towel. You don't even have to wash it, you can just dab it on a paper towel. And the rest from the bottom up, I'm covering with the darker green. So you go again about 60% because you overlap. Or you can go 50 and then just blend. That's okay too. And then you wash off your brush, dab it off on a paper towel to get rid of extra water. And then with a clean, slightly wet brush, you can go ahead and just smudge that line in between the two colors to make them a little more blended. So you see that's our nice transition of two colors here. And then I'm going to switch my brush again to, I'm going back to my medium brush. And I'm going to do those 3 leaves on each side. You're going to make sure you have enough paint on your painting tray. So I'm going to do them one at a time. So light and dark. All right, first one. Now let's go on to our second one. Again, light color, then right away dark color. And if you need to blend them a little bit, you can, but it doesn't have to be perfect blending. It's not a requirement. And do you remember I told you I may darken it up? So I'm going to darken it up on the next layer. I'm going to use that as a base. You see, they're kind of not very separated. They almost merge on the bottom part. That's okay. We'll separate them on the next layer when we move on to that green mixed with black. So let's go to our last one on the side. Awesome. Now let's do the other side. It's the exact same thing on the other side. All right, and our last one. Ta-da! Looking good. So what I want to do, two more little things while I'm on those particular colors to finish it up. First, I'm going to add a bit of this light green onto the upper area background. And second, I'm going to add a bit of this cold darker green onto those branches. So do you remember those branches that we added on the sides? For the top, you can use the same brush, or you can go even bigger brush if you have one, and just grab that light green but super watered down. So water it down to a super light consistency, and with that, just add a little bit on the left, a little bit on the right, right here, right around your gnome, around the hat. You can go right over your branch. I'm gonna add a bit of splatter here too. Awesome. And I'll do the exact same thing on the other side, just a little. Amazing. Yes, I'm happy with this. Now I'm going to switch my brush, and I'm going to go to my small brush, and I'm going to grab a little bit of this cold green, cold darker green. So the one that was like a standard green mixed with blue, that emerald green. I'm going to grab a little bit of that, and I'm just going to add it to a couple of brush strokes right here around my branch itself. And if you wanted to, you can even add a bit more blue to it so it's nice and cold. So make sure you don't use, I mean, you can do whatever you want. It's your painting. Don't let me tell you what colors to use here. Use whatever you want. But really what I am doing here, what I'm suggesting is that you use colder green. So if your green is not cold enough, you can even add a smidge of blue here to make it cold enough. And then we're just going to add a couple flicks, because I can still see my branch right, and a couple flicks I added with my pencil around it to make the positioning easier now. It doesn't matter whether you flick them from the inside out, from the outside in, as long as you use a small brush, it will work just fine. And a couple right here. Awesome. Awesome. So, couple things actually need to dry up before we can continue. So let's work on our nose maybe for now. What we're going to do is we're going to make our first color. If you have color in your palette that you think will work for skin tone, because you can do absolutely any skin tone on your gnome. You can do something like this, or maybe mixed with that. For a lighter skin tone, you can do a mix of like a pink and a smidge of yellow. So let me show you. You can do, let's take my pink, just any pink, like something like that, for example, and a tiny smidge of yellow or orange. And you see it turn into any skin tone-ish color. You can do just a very watered down pink of some kind for super light pale skin tones, you see. You can definitely go darker. There are a lot of variations of caramel or brown or super dark brown, almost black. So honestly, whatever shade you want to go with, go for it. Sky's the limit to what you can mix here. I'm gonna go with like a nice light caramelly color. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna use brown as my base. It's always actually easy to use brown as a base unless you're making a super light pale color, in which case you can use just, you know, water as a base and add a smidge of either orange or pink if you want it super light. But I like using brown as a base because for more like a medium tones. So I would grab a bit of brown, and then because I wanted like a caramelly color warm, warm, I'm gonna add a smidge of orange to that. And now I'm gonna water it down really well for the first layer. And with the super watered down color, I'm gonna add this first layer on the entire thing. See how nice and light it is because I used super watered down. And also this is just the color I'm going for. You can definitely go darker. Let's make now the darker, more saturated color. And with this color, I'm gonna go right around the, well, it's inside the nose, but closer to the outer edge. And then I'm gonna wash off my brush, dab it off on a paper towel, and I'm gonna smudge it towards the inside. And you see we got the same effect that we did with our shoes, with our mitts. We got this darker edge and lighter inside. And now I'm gonna go even darker. And I'm gonna get a little flick here, closer to the bottom, just to darken up that section. And you can just wait until it dries if you wanna see it more linear and less blended. But if you don't mind blendedness, you can do it right away. So I would say that's up to you. So that gave, oops, I just got some water and it's fine. It's watercolor. It's gonna do its thing. So I'm gonna give everything a minute to dry. I don't think I have much of the spots where I can work. Let's see. Oh, let's add a little smidge of gray here. Good spot. So I'm gonna grab some water and a smidge of black and I'm gonna make that light gray. I'm just gonna add a little bit of that on the bottom of our fluffy ball here. Yes, looking good. Okay, I think I could go, this is dry, sort of dry, this is dry. Hat is dry, but around the head it's not dry, so I can't really go there because it's just gonna bleed all over the place and I don't want that. This is dry, this is dry, this is dry. So I guess I could add the brown branches. So just grab any shade of brown that you have, grab it quite saturated too. And then with this brown, I'm gonna add a branch right in the middle. Here, also on the other side. And two more areas where I'm gonna do it. Actually, more than two. Yes, two areas, not two branches, sorry. Two areas. So here and here. So we're gonna add those branches right in the middle. Yes, ta-da. Maybe I'll add a bit more to my nose. Now that's drying up. Awesome. Okay, let's move to last layer on red. So what you're gonna do, as I mentioned earlier, if you have a darker red, like for example, I do have a darker red. This is my darker red. I'm gonna use that. If you don't, you can mix whatever red you used with a tiny, tiny smidge of black. So you're gonna grab first your red super saturated, and then you're gonna add a little bit of black. Or if you have a darker red already pre-mixed, you just grab that. You don't have to mix anything unless you need to. I do have darker red pre-mix, so I'm just going to use that. And I'm going to put it on my palette very saturated. All right, so here it is. I'm going to wash off my medium brush, put it aside, and I'm going to grab my small brush. And I'm going to start by adding those lines here. You can do any other design or pattern on your head. It's totally fine. Don't limit yourself to stripes if you'd rather do something else. Yay! Awesome! And then using the same color, I'm gonna add just a smidge over my berries here, like on the outline of the berries or closer to the edge of the berries. So with berries, I'm doing something very similar to what I did with my second color, just less of it. So I did this two berries, now I'm gonna do this, all my berries while I'm at it. So again, you just adding them starting with the edge, and then you add a couple of brush strokes to the middle to kind of fill in your berry, but you leave. So if before we filled in maybe 70%, now you fill in maybe 30% of your berry with it, so you can see all the colors we previously added. And you just make it rounder. That's why we start from the outside and darkening up that outside. All right, my berries are done. So now I'm gonna move to my mints. And again, I'm gonna add a smidge right here to darken it up. Maybe right here. Again, wash off my brush, dab it up, smudge it. You don't have to smudge it if you're okay with the look without smudging it. It's a little bit more linear, but if you like it, you don't have to smudge it. So I'm just gonna add a bit there, wash it off, smudge it. And the same with the boots. I'm gonna go on to the bottom part, but I'm just gonna add less than what I added with my previous color. So you see I'm darkening up this, and I'm washing off my brush, and again I'm just smudging it. All right, and now I'm gonna move on to this darker, colder green. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna grab my medium brush again, medium small, and I'm gonna put that emerald, the one that I used here, the darker, colder one. If you don't have it, again, make it just by mixing your regular green with some blue. And I'm gonna put it right here on my palette. And then to this color, I'm gonna add a smidge more blue to make it a little bit colder. You may not notice, you may not notice the difference on camera because it doesn't pick up every shade. It does a good job picking up shades, but I can't say that it picks up every shade. And then I'm gonna add a smidge of black. So yes, there is a difference. It should get a little bluer and of course darker. So this is the color I'm going to be using. Still, you see, it's still visually green. It's not black, but it's not like that vibrant green. And with this, you can use whichever brush you find easiest. I'm going to be using my small brush, so I'm going to wash off my medium brush, put it aside, grab my small brush. And with small brush and this color, I'm gonna start by adding a couple flicks right in here. So from the inside out, I'm gonna add a flick right in the middle, then a couple little flicks outside from it, but only if you have a small brush that allows you for this. If your brush is not capable of it, don't do it. Just one flick in the middle is more than enough. And then I'm gonna add just a bit of an outline using the same color to increase the contrast there and to define it a little because it's such a small detail. Then I'm going to move on to my large leaves and I'm going to start the same thing. I'll flick from the inside out And then from this thing towards the edge, I'm going to flick a couple little lines, but always flick them from the middle line out. That's important. Because wherever you start them, it's going to be the widest, thickest point, and you want that to be always closer to the middle. So let's do that on all of them. All right, looking good. And now with the same color, I'm gonna add a second row of those little flicks on those branches. And they don't have to be overlapping your first row. In fact, it's better if they don't, because you want to fill in those branches a bit more with this too. You want to see both of your colors. Yay! All right, I like it. Okay, and what you could do here, so this is optional, but watch me do it and then you can decide whether you want it or not. Ideally, you want this to be dry, which in my case it dries really fast, so it is dry. And you can go around just the very base with the same color, just the very base of either just the middle leaf or all leaves, up to you. I'm going to start with the middle one and see how I feel. And darken it up and then blend it, just to create another layer of darkness. That way your berries will pop more too, but you don't go as far as you did with the previous dark color, you go way less. And as soon as you added it, again, you wash off your brush, you dab it off on a paper towel, and you lightly blend this. Do you see the difference with additional dark layer right around here and with no additional dark layer? And again, you can decide on how many leaves you're going to do that. Can be all of them, could be just the middle one. Completely up to you guys. Make a little more. All right, I will do those two maybe. You can do all of them completely. Like, don't limit yourself if you want to do all of them. Yay, awesome. Okay, and now this has to dry up a little bit before we can move on to our background, but there's something I want to do, and I want to make even darker gray, so like almost black, and it was just a little bit of this. I kind of want to increase contrast here, so I'm going to add a little bit of that. So I'm going to grab my black. Do you see it's pretty dark? I'll water it down just a little bit, and it was just a tiny touch of this paint. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a bit of contrast here. So I'm going to add like a flick of this color every here and there, I guess. So it just adds a bit of contrast. If you're not a big fan of detailed work with a brush, you can even do this with like a Sharpie, fine tip Sharpie, or a black pen if that's easier for you. Or if you want to stay true to actual true watercolor spirit, you can do what I am doing and just use a brush. But yeah, if you want to do a little bit of cheating and do it with a Sharpie or a pen, that's okay. You're welcome to do that too. just gonna add like a flick to any areas where you want to increase the contrast. As you can note, as you noticed, I'm not going everywhere. I'm not doing a full-on outline to everything. It's more like a smidge here and there, just to accentuate certain areas or separate them, you know, just addition of whatever needs to be added, wherever it needs to be added. Oh, a little smudge, but that's okay. I'm gonna add background there. Might even add some around berries, just a little bit. I'm gonna separate them a touch. All right. And now I'm gonna move to the rest of my background. So I'm gonna wash off my small brush and I'm gonna grab my large brush. And here I'm gonna grab, so it's gonna be a cold green. So again, mix between blue and green. So now I'm gonna make it a bit bluer though. So do you remember that color I used here as my cold green, that emerald? I'm gonna grab that and I'm gonna add lots of blue to it to create like a true mixture between blue and green. You see, it almost looks more blue than green. And then I'm gonna really, really water it down. And with that super light watered down color, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna add a little bit right here. You can overlap your leaves with it because it should be that light, right? That if you overlap your leaves, you're not ruining anything. It should be super, super transparent. But of course, if it's not that transparent, definitely avoid everything. So you see I did a little bit there. Now let's splatter a touch there. Oh yeah, that looks awesome. And I'm gonna add a little bit right here too. Again, because my super light, I'm really just not avoiding anything, I'm just going over everything because it's super, super light. If yours is darker than mine, then try to avoid your branches because you don't want to darken them up. Maybe I'll add a smidge right here too. And ta-da, guys, it is done. Doesn't this look super, super beautiful? I love it, personally. So now we just need to sign it. Pick a good spot and you can put your name, your initials, your signature, anything that you would like. And after that, feel free to take a photo and post it in our Facebook group. It calls Watercolor Lovers by Artist Palette Durham region. And we specifically made it for people like you and I who are into watercolor, for people who want to learn this medium, who want to explore together, and who just wants to make a couple friends along the way who are into the same thing. Yeah, so feel free. We have a group, again, it's called Watercolor Lovers by Artist Palette Durham region. Please feel free to take a photo and post it there. But we also have another group. It's a painting support group. You're welcome to post it there too. That one is not limited to watercolor medium. It's for all our tutorials and for everyone who participated in our tutorials. So you can post it in that one instead if you prefer, or you can post it in both. We would love to see it wherever you choose to post it. Yes, because we love seeing how they turn out because it almost makes us feel like we were doing it together in, you know, in the same space, seeing how they turn out. So feel free to do that. If you're shy and you just don't want to, that's okay. And I'm going to link groups into the description of this video so you don't have to go online and just browse the internet for them because internet is a scary place, places it will take you. So I'm just gonna avoid all that hustle for you. So I'm gonna put links in the description and you can just click on them and it will bring you right to the group and you're welcome to post your results there. Again, guys, this video is gonna stay here pretty much forever, so you can come back and do it anytime and you can try to modify this one if you prefer and make it for a different season or just go with a different color scheme. You know, just play with it, make it unique to you. And if this maybe is your first video with us, feel free to subscribe because we do a lot of videos like this. Sometimes we go live here on YouTube, but we also upload a lot of pre-recorded video tutorials and we have a ton of different mediums. We have watercolor, we have acrylic, we have pencil, lots and lots of beautiful stuff. coming, but we also have lots of beautiful tutorials already uploaded, so feel free to browse them. And if you guys really enjoyed painting with me and you're just super excited about your results and you just wondering how you can say thank you can always leave me a little tip. There's a PayPal link in the description of this video. So if you just click on that and choose send money option, not request money, send money option, and you can leave any tip that you feel like, if you feel like it. You don't have to, but tips do help us to make more and more videos like this for you. So feel free to do that if you wish to do so. And that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you all for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and, see my face as well, because again, I've never done the one where I have my view and my face, so I hope it wasn't like, oh no, hide your face, super annoying, but I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it felt more personal and you felt like we were actually, sitting in the same room, because that's the experience we're going for, and that's how we hope you guys feel, because that's what's important to us, right? So I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope I will see some of your results at some point. Thanks for joining me, guys. Bye, everyone.